Chapter 49. Leo. The way Leo figured it, he'd spent more time crashing than he did flying. If there was a rewards card for frequent crashers, he'd be like double platinum level. He regained consciousness as he was free-falling through the clouds. He had a hazy memory of Keone taunting him right before he got shot into the sky. He hadn't actually seen her, but he could never forget that Snow Witch's voice. He had no idea how long he'd been gaining altitude, but at some point he must have passed out from the cold and lack of oxygen. Now he was on his way down, heading for his biggest crash ever. The clouds parted around him. He saw the glistening sea far, far below. No sign of the Argo II. No sign of any coastline, familiar or otherwise, except for one tiny island at the horizon. Leo could not fly. He had a couple of minutes at most before he'd hit the water and go kersplat. He decided he didn't like the ending to the epic ballad of Leo. He was still clutching the Archimedes spear, which didn't surprise him. Unconscious or not, he would never let go of his most valuable possession. With a little maneuvering, he managed to pull some duct tape from his tool belt and strap the spear to his chest. That made him look like a low-budget Iron Man, but at least he had both hands free. He started to work, furiously tinking with the spear, pulling out anything he thought would help from his magical tool belt. A drop cloth, metal extenders, some string and grommets. Working while falling was almost impossible. The wind roared in his ears. It kept ripping tools, screws, and canvas out of his hands. But finally he constructed a makeshift frame. He popped open a hatch on the spear, teased out 2 wires, and connected them to his crossbar. How long until he hit the water? Maybe a minute? He turned the spear's control dial, and it whirled into action. More bronze wires shot from the orb, intuitively sensing what Leo needed. Cords laced up the canvas drop cloth. The frame began to expand on its own. Leo pulled out a can of kerosene and a rubber tire tube and lashed them to the thrifty new engine that the orb was helping him assemble. Finally he made himself a rope halter and shifted so that the X-frame was attached to his back. The sea got closer and closer, a glittering expanse of slap-you-in-the-face death. He yelled in defiance and punched the spear's override switch. The engine coughed to life. The makeshift motor turned. The canvas blades spun, but much too slowly. Leo's head was pointed straight down at the sea. Maybe 30 seconds to impact. At least nobody was around, he thought bitterly, or I'd be a demigod joke forever. What was the last thing to go through Leo's mind? The Mediterranean. Suddenly, the orb got warm against his chest. The blades turned faster. The engine coughed, and Leo tilted sideways, slicing through the air. Yes! He yelled. He had successfully created the world's first, most dangerous personal helicopter. He shot towards the island in the distance, but he was still falling much too fast. The blades shuddered. The canvas screamed. The beach was only a few hundred yards away when the spear turned lava hot, and the helicopter exploded, shooting flames in every direction. If he hadn't been immune to fire, Leo would have been charcoal. As it was, the mid-air explosion probably saved his life. The blast flung Leo sideways while the bulk of his flaming contraption smashed into the shore at full speed with a massive kaboom! Leo opened his eyes, amazed to be alive. He was sitting in a bathtub-sized crater in the sand. A few yards away, a column of thick black smoke rolled up into the sky from a much larger crater. The surrounding beach was peppered with smaller pieces of burning wreckage. "My spear!" Leo patted his chest. The spear wasn't there. His duct tape and rope halter had disintegrated. He struggled to his feet. None of his bones seemed to be broken, which was good, but mostly he was worried about his Archimedes spear. If he destroyed his priceless artifact to make a flaming 30-second helicopter, he was going to track down that stupid snow goddess Keone and smack her with a monkey wrench. He staggered across the beach, wondering why there weren't any tourists or hotels or boats in sight. The island seemed a perfect spot for a resort, with blue water and soft white sand. Maybe it was uncharted. Did they still have uncharted islands in the world? Maybe Keone had blasted him out of the Mediterranean altogether. For all he knew, he was in Bora Bora. The large crater was about 8 feet deep. At the bottom, the helicopter blades were still trying to turn. The engine belched smoke. The rotor croaked like a stepped-on frog. But dang, pretty impressive for a rush job.